Hi green lovers, I'm out here sitting with my beautiful Coleus plant that I nurtured and grew from a tiny little seed. In this video I wanted to show you all the tips and tricks on growing Coleus from a little seed that comes from a seed packet just like this and from a tiny seed like this into this beautiful gorgeous plant that is so easy to propagate once it gets to a certain size. Let me show you how I did it. Now, Coleus is a gorgeous plant that is easy to grow, and you can fill up an empty space in your garden with a rainbow of colors very quickly. It requires very little care other than a well-draining soil and regular water. And under the right circumstances, it can grow very fast and can easily be propagated. So, what's not to love? Well, I'll tell you what the bad news is. Even though Coleus is a perennial, in the tropical climates in my Northern California Zone 9B garden, even though we have very mild winters, a single day when temperature drops to below zero, this thing is gonna die. So I can only grow Coleus indoors during winter, but you know what? I love the thrill of not knowing what I'll get when I grow Coleus from seeds that I prefer actually to grow from seed. So it's a thrill every year to see what I'll get. Oh, and speaking of being a tropical plant, this is also one of the very last plants that I take out as a transplant into my garden in late spring, roughly the same time that I take my eggplant or my peppers and transplant them into my garden. It really does not like the cooler temperatures, and I've got to wait until the nighttime temperatures are consistently in the late 50s, early 60s Fahrenheit before I'm ready to take this out into my garden. Choosing a location for Coleus in your garden is also pretty important. Now, it's one of those plants that grows really well in part or full shade. I've got this beautiful oak tree shading out this part of my garden, and I have this space in this whiskey barrel where I'm struggling to grow some blueberry plants. The soil is not acidic enough, but you know, there's some space over here that was available, and I just stuck a few cuttings of Coleus into this pot, and voila! Started growing. And one quick tip, the darker shades of Coleus actually can handle sunlight better than the lighter shades, so keep that in mind when you're choosing a location for your Coleus plant. And one quick fun fact, this belongs to the family Lamiaceae. That's actually the same family that a lot of our culinary herbs belong to, like sage and basil and oregano and mint and marjoram. Yeah, they're all in the same family as Coleus, Lamiaceae. Now, Coleus does need a nice, rich, well-draining soil to grow in that needs to retain moisture pretty well. These plants have really thick, water-filled stems, and their leaves too are a little bit on the succulent side, so you do not want this plant to dry out because it is pretty unforgiving when it comes to its moisture needs. Anything else it can compromise on, but not on the moisture in your soil. In fact, in order to know if your Coleus has enough moisture, just stick your finger about 1 inch into the soil. For most plants, you would do 2 inches down. For Coleus, I suggest 1 inch into the soil. And if you can feel moisture in there, then you know that your Coleus is getting enough water. But don't let it dry out any further than that because it just will struggle and not do well. So one thing you do not want Coleus to do is flower, because once it flowers it starts to get leggy and it doesn't produce those nice side branches, which is what you're looking for. So just go ahead whenever you see these flower stalks starting to form and just do a little pinch it off right there. And you can see actually that there are new leaf buds starting to form here, so that will make the plant nice and bushy. So keep plucking those flower stalks whenever you see them. In fact, you don't even need to wait for the flower stalks. Just every once in a while, if you see the plant kind of looking a little bit leggy, like this one, it's growing a little too tall and not bushy enough, just break off that growing tip, and now it's going to grow side branches much more aggressively. You can already see them starting to form. Now let's talk about growing Coleus from seeds. Note that Coleus seeds do need light to germinate, so just sprinkle a few seeds on the surface of the soil and press them down into the soil. Don't cover the seeds with soil. I like to cover it with a plastic bag or something to keep the moisture and humidity inside. And then you put it on a warm surface, and since I usually start these during the winter months, I provide them with a grow mat, and that gives it that warmth, and they sprout really, really quickly. These seeds, these little tiny seedlings here, sprouted in exactly 7 days. I planted them on February 7th, and by February 14th, they were out and growing, and look how they grew. So it's been 19 days since I planted my Coleus from seed. And as you can see, it is starting to develop a little color in the leaves. And it is getting its true leaves. So it's time to pot this up, because if I don't do it now, the little tiny Coleuses that are being shaded out by these bigger plants are going to die off. And I want to try and save as many as possible. So I'm going to go against what nature does, which is survival of the fittest. I'm going to try and make all of them fit. So I planted on the 7th of February. Today is February 26th. So this is what I mean by the little ones that are being shaded out by the bigger ones on the top. So I'm going to try and plant those up as well and see if I can get them to start growing vigorously. I'm using these 3 6-pack containers. Okay, so this is what the Coleus looks like after I have potted them up into these little cells. I've planted about between 3 and 4 per cell. So I'm watering these ever so gently with my squirt gun, and then I'm going to be taking them back to where I brought them from, which is my indoor grow tent. Give them a few days to get over the transplant shock, and then I'm going to start gently moving them outside for a few hours every day. And then let's check back in a few weeks and see how they're doing. Well, folks, it is April 9th, 2022, and it is time to uppot my Coleus. Actually, it is overdue time to uppot my Coleus. They are looking pretty gorgeous, and I think they will look even better once I start fertilizing them. So I'm going to be uppotting them to gallon pots like this. I'm probably going to put about 3 plugs like this into each gallon pot. And once it gets big enough, I might uppot it one more time, or I might transfer some into the ground. Let's just see how they do. And really, it's as simple as that. A little bit of potting soil, make a little hole, push it in, water it in, and you're done. I really love these plug trays. These are from Epic Gardening. That's where I got it from. And they're fantastic because they've got these holes at the bottom that are really quite big, and all you need to do is push your finger through. I don't have to find a pencil. Some of these other things have really small holes. You got to find something that fits in at the bottom. This, I just use my finger, pop it out. It comes out nicely. Push it into the soil, and it's really as simple as that. And there you have it, 5 lovely 1-gallon pots with Coleus. All came from those 3 little 6-packs. Okay, it's transplant day, and I'm transplanting my Coleus into my green stalk vertical planter. Of course, I'm making a big mess. I'm going to plant 2 Coleus plants per pocket. Okay folks, it's the 17th of July and a really long overdue video of how my Coleus is coming along. As you can see, it has grown simply gorgeous. There's another one right here. And I'll take you around and show you some of the other Coleus, but I wanted to show you some of the other plants growing in my green stalk planter here. This large plant is a serrano pepper, and it's loaded with peppers. This here is a beaver dam pepper, nice large pepper. More beautiful Coleus, getting shaded out by all these pepper plants. So, but still growing really pretty. Look at those leaves, aren't they gorgeous? I've got some eggplants growing at the bottom here. This is a little Prince eggplant. It's a patio eggplant. Oh, look at that variegated pepper. I think that's a fish pepper or a jigsaw pepper. Oh, jigsaw pepper. There we go. This one here I think is an ahi lemon pepper. And some tomatoes growing here. This is a dwarf variety tomato called Geranium Kiss. And let's see. Yeah, more Coleus. So yeah, maybe it was not ideal to plant it with all these huge plants, but you get the idea. Coleus can grow really easily from seed. It is actually really easy to propagate as well. Once it reaches this stage, all you need to do is break off a branch, remove a few of the leaves at the bottom, and just stick it in some soil and it'll grow a new plant very, very quickly. In fact, that's what I did right here is I stuck a cutting in some soil and it has grown into a whole new plant, and I can actually make some new cuttings from this one. This is growing quite tall. Do like this video if you enjoy Coleus as much as I do, folks, and if you think it is beautiful. Live green and love your greens.